If the Falcons don't watch out, Brock Bowers, Maxx Crosby, and the Las Vegas Raiders could wreck their hopes on Monday Night Football.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, where you can start the season with a big return. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. Mr. Drew, a.k.a. the iron that sharpens the iron, a.k.a. Mr. a.k.a. And I've been covering the Atlanta Falcons for almost 2 decades, formerly at FalcFans.com, RIP. Still going strong on this illustrious podcast, and I thank each and every one of you that goes strong with me as everydayers. That means you make this podcast your first listen each and every day, and to become an everydayer, all you have to do is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcast. So today's episode, I am joined by none other than Jarvis Davis, an illustrious guest of Locked On Sports Atlanta. We're going to talk X's and O's about this upcoming Week 15 Monday night matchup between the Falcons and Raiders. You know, we're just going to get a reprieve from Kirk Cousins for at least one day, right? I'm sure he might come up in today's episode, but, you know, we spent 4 days out of the 5 days this week talking about Kirk Cousins. We'll give you guys a break from Kirk Cousins talk, and instead we'll talk about Maxx Crosby and how the Falcons are going to deal with him. We'll talk about Kyle Ptts and if he can sort of change the narrative that has occurred this season. But we'll start off talking about the more popular tight end here in the state of Georgia. That is none other than the Las Vegas Raiders tight end, you know, potential offensive rookie of the year candidate, Brock Bowers, arguably the best rookie in the league, better than some of them quarterbacks that the Falcons have faced already this year and will face later this season. But he's going to be a huge challenge for this Falcons defense. He's basically a slot receiver. Looked it up. 55% of his snaps come in the slot, 17% outside, only 26% in line. That's the 5th lowest among NFL starting tight ends. I studied the film, Jarvis, to figure out who can stop him. Not many have. Some teams were successful, like Tampa Bay, using a lot of dime defense with 6 DBs. Denver had some success against them, partially because they were able to put Patrick Surtain on him when he lined up outside. We've seen the Falcons uptick their dime usage in recent weeks. Kevin King, given his versatility, his size, maybe that's an option to deal with Brock Bowers. We know A.J. Terrell also makes sense when Brock Bowers is on the outside. The Raiders have basically been a 12 personnel team since Scott Turner took over the offensive coordinator. That's a 2 tight end set for those unfamiliar. One of the changes that Jimmy Lake has done in the positive, because earlier in the season he refused to play base defense against 2 tight end sets. And we're like, why are we doing this, Jimmy? But he's started to play more base defense against 2 tight end sets. And we've seen the last couple of weeks since Troy Anderson's return to the lineup that he continues to be used primarily and exclusively in nickel and dime defense, while Nate Landman is getting all those base snaps. But if they continue to play base against these 2 tight end sets, there's the potential of some mismatches there, because we know Nate Landman is not necessarily the great coverage guy. So all that to say, Jarvis,
point that out.
You know, I got to do me. You know, we're not going to talk about Kirk Cousins, but we are going to talk about the linebackers on this podcast. Yes, but you know, we know that Jimmy Lake is an everydayer of this podcast. All that to say. Yes. So, Jarvis, I'm giving you the floor.
My game plan.
You are speaking directly to Jimmy Lake as we speak right now. He's listening. You're giving suggestions to Jimmy Lake. How do you deal with Brock Bowers in this Monday night game?
I think I would throw different looks at him. I'm not going to go with one specific person and say, hey, Troy Anderson, go out there and do what you do. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have Troy Anderson. I'm going to throw Troy Anderson at him. I'm going to throw Justin Simmons at him. I don't know if that might necessarily be a good idea, but, you know, just from a schematic standpoint and not being caught out with your pants down with everywhere else, you know, you gotta give him a couple of different looks. And I think that, I think you're spot on, because, like, man, they are heavy 12 personnel. Michael Mayer and Brock, they're on the field a lot. So when you think about it from just from being able to have solid guys, I mean, not Michael Mayer is solid. Sorry, excuse me. I'm not being disrespectful right now. And Brock Bowers is amazing. Like, covered him for the Georgia Bulldogs. I know what that man brings to the table. He is a whole man, and I think that is and to the point where, like, he's the first read in these plays and these packages, when you talk about Turner, calling plays, and even when Aiden O'Connell, before he went out of that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man, like they're looking at 89 as soon as that ball is snapped. So this is not a coincidence that he's out here balling like this and up for the offensive rookie of the year. Antonio Pierce understands it too. Like, hey man, he basically said, hey, he's our only guy that you really have to worry about. So, and that's the thing that Jimmy Lake has to make sure he prevents. You don't let the guy that everybody knows is getting the football go off like that. Like Minnesota was different, right? Because you got Justin Jefferson, all world, all guy, but you can't let Jordan Addison go off and TJ Hockenson go off in the second half. Like, so for me, I would give him some different looks. I would throw some zone blitzes. I would really try to disguise some coverages, especially if we have a guy like Desmond Ridder who likes to lock in on his guy, pun intended, as you listen to Locked On Falcons, and hopefully you listen to Locked On Sports Atlanta as well, because we love each other. We all part up under the same umbrella, baby. So just gluttony of content for you for Atlanta Sports Go. So, but yeah, man, I think overall Brock is the guy that he needs to have his eye on, and I think you kind of not shut him down completely because you don't have Patrick Surtain. Although I wouldn't be against AJ Terrell lining up on 89 from time to time. So yeah, but a varied looks. I think that's the way to go when it comes to how Jimmy Lake should handle that coverage.
I think that's pretty spot on, Jarvis. That's kind of my approach. I don't think the Falcons are good enough on the back end, even though we know that they have some good players on the back end, to basically say, go take him out of the game, right? To erase him from the game plan. They don't have that guy. And I recall back in the day when the Falcons had a similar issue dealing with Jimmy Graham at the height of his powers in New Orleans. And I remember a game, I think it was in 2012, I think it was that 5-interception game that Drew Brees had against the Falcons. And they basically threw everybody out. It was Willie Moe, Thomas DeCoux, Stephen Nicholas, Dante Robinson, whoever they had, they were just basically throwing stuff at the wall. Whatever stuck, and it was basically we'll figure it out. And I think that's kind of the strategy I think Jimmy Lake should adopt. Just kind of throw stuff at the wall, try Kevin King, try Justin Simmons, try AJ Terrell, try D. Alford, try Troy Anderson, try Caden Ellis, try Jesse Bates, and whatever works.
Try a 53.
Don't yeah, we know that's not gonna.
I don't want to see that.
But like, try whatever works, and we know the strength of what Jimmy Lake's defense has been this year is making those in-game, mid-game adjustments. And so figure out, make those adjustments, throw stuff at the wall, and then, go with that, what it seems to be the most effective. But I agree with you, kind of varying the looks, because I just don't think the Falcons can do one thing and expect to keep Brock Bowers contained. As you said, you're not going to shut him down, but keep him contained.
Yeah, and that's my whole thing, because when you talk about a bend but don't break defense, you really can't. There's a reason why you bend but don't break, because you can't take away one thing, and when you focus in on a certain element of, like, coming into a game plan, there's always a number that you're gonna circle coming in, like, okay, here's the guy that we need to make sure he doesn't kill us. Like the language got to be a little different. Like, hey, we don't want 89 to kill us, because they have no one else. They really don't have anyone else, especially on the outside. So that's why I feel like you can do so much when you don't necessarily have to worry about outside threats at the wide receiver spot. And this is the type of game that defensive line, that front, can continue to have some success rushing the passer, because if you throw some different exotic blitzes, some zone blitzes and everything like that, or you can even go man, you can go cover zero at some point too, because they run 12 personnel, right? So because they, like to have two tight ends on the field at most of the time, you can play around with sending Troy, sending Caden. And I like that matchup. If you making that quarterback rush to make a decision and they're apt to turn the ball over anyway, O'Connell and Ritter. So yeah, I think this is a game, man. I'm not gonna repeat what I said on Locked On Sports Atlanta, but this is a game that the defense can continue to show us that, hey, man, with adjustments necessary, mindset adjustments, scheme adjustments, they can doggone be formidable.
Yes. So we'll see if the Falcons can stop that killer on the Raiders offense. They got another killer on the Raiders defense by the name of Maxx Crosby, and we'll break down how we expect the Falcons to deal with him on today's Locked On Falcons. Today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks, and if you love watching the game, you're going to love PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. Whatever your favorite sport is, PrizePicks is going to make your holidays bigger and brighter. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks, and this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, PrizePicks is going to make it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. So looking ahead to this Monday night matchup, my moneymaker all season long on PrizePicks has been Darnell Mooney taking the more 51.5 receiving yards. Take that more. You feel like Kirk, Kyle Ptts are going to break their slumps. Kirk, more 2.5 touchdowns. Kyle Ptts, more, less, 34.5 receiving yards. It's that easy. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 line. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even have to win. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. With 5 generations of experience, they constantly deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. So who doesn't want a big old slab of beef this holiday? Surf and turf, mouth-watering desserts. Treat yourself and your family right while saving 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code NFL and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. Minimum purchase may apply. Talking with Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta. I talked with your boy Q on Locked On Raiders on yesterday's crossover and basically talked about how the Falcons haven't really faced a pass rusher of Maxx Crosby's caliber much this year. They had one in week 1 against TJ Watt. They were able to dodge the Micah Parsons bullet 5 weeks ago due to him being out of that Cowboys game with an injury. So we really have just like a 1-game sample size, and it wasn't very good. Right, the Falcon strategy for dealing with TJ Watt was so bad that we don't even talk about the week 1 game. We don't talk about Bruno. And so hopefully the Falcons have learned some lessons from the game that shall not be named from that week 1 game. And, you know, to deal with a pass rusher of Maxx Crosby's incredible ability. And last week we saw a massive uptick in the Falcons using that 12 personnel, that 2 tight end set. And I'm wondering, Jarvis, is that kind of, should we see a continuation of that this week where it's kind of like we'll put 2 tight ends on the field, you know, unlike TJ Watt, who lines up exclusively on like one side of the field, Maxx Crosby does move around a little bit. And so you just put Kyle Ptts on one side, Charlie Warner on one side, and, you know, maybe shade Charlie to the side that Max usually lines up on. Yeah. But it's just like whatever side Max is on, that guy chips, and then the other guy, I guess, releases. Or do you feel like, you know, there's another strategy? Or do you feel like Jake Matthews and Caleb McGarry, at this point in time, you trust those guys enough to go toe-to-toe with Maxx Crosby on an island? What would be your plan to deal with Maxx Crosby?
One, I will not leave him on the island. I will not do that.
Okay.
So because I think coming into this game, this is one of those games where, in giving the dude, nephew, I'm just going to call him nephew, given how nephew has been playing under center, I feel like this is one of those games where you need to reestablish yourself as a run-first team. I have no issues with that whatsoever because you have an outstanding running back that you can turn around and hand the ball off to, and you can throw pretty much 100% completion rate passes out of the backfield, and they're called screens. And just let them go to work, man, because I think this is a game that you can win, and you don't want to put yourself in a situation where it could get out of hand. How can it get out of hand, Jarvis? If you start dropping back the pass from the pistol and you're trying to run all these deep routes because they're trying to play man coverage because teams have had success doing that against you. You kind of backed them up a little bit, against the Vikings. Darnell Mooney started going off. He's the man beater, coach. He's the man beater. So if they try to do those things as you're, establish yourself in the run, then you take those shots deep. Then you can get on the center and do the play action and all those things. I feel like if with that type of game plan, you can shield off Maxx Crosby. But if for some strange reason defense start acting nutty, you're down 7-0, and in the first quarter, and they score first, and you out on the road, you halfway sleepwalking through the first quarter of the game, you start getting that shotgun, and you trying to get Kyle involved in the game, and you got him split out wide. I mean, man, I'm telling you, man, that he's the type of guy that can change this game. But I think establishing yourself as a run-first team, running the football, mixing in 25 from time to time to switch it up, I think that can get you to a point where you're in control of this game and you're not getting behind the sticks and 3rd and long and 98 got his hand, that hand, one hand down, and he kind of like got this other hand ready just to doggone rip that mother blanket through Caleb McGarry, because he probably going to line up over there. I can see him lining up over there over 76, just cause for kicks and giggles, because he might have an opportunity to win. So yeah, I think, man, this has to be one of those games where you're like, dog, I thought they were a pistol 11 personnel type team. Nah, you got to be able to switch it up, baby, when it's not working. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jarvis. And you saw it last week, right? The Bucs got up to a 14-0 lead. Yep. They were able to commit to running the football after that point in time. They didn't really do much in the second and third quarters and whatnot, and then sort of open things up in the fourth quarter. But I think that sort of blueprint is what you're looking for, where it's just like offense get off to a fast start. We've seen them consistently being able to move the ball in those early drives. They got to convert in the red zone. That has been an issue throughout this season for this Falcon team. And we'll see if they can do that against the Raiders. But
they've been struggling in the red zone on this 4-game losing streak. Just interesting coincidence.
Yes. So, they're going to have some opportunities, and hopefully this is the week they take advantage of those opportunities, because that has been an issue during this 4-game opportunity losing streak, because they get these opportunities and it just seem to miss, not scoring. Yeah. So I think you're right. I think you do not want to get in a situation where you're playing from behind against Maxx Crosby and he's able to pin his ears back, because I was watching some of those games and against the Bucs, and they're double and triple teaming him, and he's still pushing the pocket, and it's just like and then on top of that, like K'Lavon Chaison's had some success in recent weeks. Tyree Wilson is finding a little bit more success, moving inside, Adam Butler and whatnot. And so these aren't necessarily household names or whatever, but if all your attention is on Maxx Crosby and then these guys are winning 1-on-1s, then you got to do your attention over there. It's basically the Justin Jefferson problem from last week, where it's like you put all your focus on Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison's killing you, and then all of a sudden Justin Jefferson goes off, and it's just one of those things. So this offensive line, this game plan, the quarterback, the running backs, the tight ends, all of those guys are going to have to work together to make this offense click and keep Maxx Crosby contained.
Yeah, I'm with you, because I think, like to your point about, for how games can kind of start getting out of hand. Like you put all this attention towards, Maxx Crosby. Just look at the last week game. Matthew Bergeron was struggling. I can't think of the young man's name. 61 I think he was an undrafted free agent for the Vikings. He was giving Bergeron all he could handle. I'm talking about from knocking down passes and all that stuff. I'm not going to say the guy's name, but nephew been struggling with getting the ball past the line of scrimmage. I don't know what it was. A lot of guys been knocking a lot of batted balls. Like, I know I'm not the quarterback expert, but I know a lot of guys that are. And a lot of times that means technique and something's not quite right when it comes to that. When that happened a lot. But yeah, I think to your point, you have to make sure you stick to what you're trying to do. Like I said, Tampa had some success with it. They only scored 28 points, and they were in control of that game. If you get the 28 points on the road, man, against a team that's lost 9 straight, come on, man. I don't care how you get there. You can get there, run that mother 35, 40 times for all I care, but you can't put yourself in situations to give those guys hope, because once you give them hope, that's when you start to see things start to change. And then you're talking about Desmond Ridder, revenge, and he went 12 for 20 and 1 touchdown and 1 pick, and they end up winning the game. And then next thing you know, he's talking about, oh, yeah, I knew I could do it, and I could be a quarterback in this league, and getting all those type of questions and all these articles being written about you. So, yeah, you don't want that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So
you having the craziest look.
No, I was worried, Jarvis, you were gonna double down.
Oh, no. I'm not going
to. So I was just like, don't do it, Jarvis.
I won't do it twice, man. I'm not crazy.
Okay. So
I'd be silly, but I ain't crazy.
Before we move to our last topic, we'll talk about Kyle Ptts and see if he can sort of take some cues from Brock Bowers and go off this game. But if you missed it, guys, on the Atlanta football party on Thursday, we're being hyper specific here on Locked On Falcons because I don't want Jarvis doubling down on the out of pocket thing that he said on Thursday's Atlanta football party. Check it out, the live show Thursday on YouTube on Locked On Sports Atlanta. You can of course check it out on your audio feeds on Locked On Falcons and Locked On Sports Atlanta. So go check it out. You're gonna know exactly what moment I'm talking about.
You'll know it when you hear it.
Yeah, and you're just gonna. I can't believe Jarvis said that. And I know some of you guys are like, Jarvis says wild stuff on Locked On Falcons. You're telling me that he said something even wilder? Yes, he did something absolutely wilder. So go check it out, guys, on the live Atlanta football party on Locked On Sports Atlanta. But let's move the conversation and talk about Kyle Ptts, where we're once again going to have a conversation about, is this going to be the big game for Kyle Ptts, the breakout game? We've had that conversation many times this season. It hasn't always come to fruition, but it's kind of a ticking clock on Kyle Ptts at this point in time and whether or not he has a future in Atlanta, and that future is kind of now, and we'll break that down to wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. Guys, continue tackling the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app is going to give you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get that hunch in the middle of the game, you can go to the same page where you can check out the latest stats, you can view the live play-by-play, and you can place your bets at the same page. It's all in one spot. And, that one spot, you might want to place a bet on the Atlanta Falcons this week against the Raiders, where they're 3.5-point favorites against Las Vegas. Or maybe you're really excited about the college football playoff with the action coming next week. You can bet any combination of winner in the college football players, Texas, Georgia, Oregon, Penn State, whoever you want. It's all available at FanDuel.com. And again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet over at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So, Jarvis, I looked up a lot of stats for this game, and a lot of stats suggest that it's going to be a more competitive game than you would think based off of the records, which is why what you said on the Atlanta football party is so out of pocket. But one stat that I did look up was the Raiders have given up the second most yards this season to tight ends. They're only behind the Kansas City Chiefs. And we've had that conversation on this podcast before when we played the Chiefs earlier this season, as well as other opponents, where it's like, oh, this is a favorable matchup for a tight end like Kyle Ptts. And sometimes he's performed in those games and sometimes he has not. And it's been a very up and down disappointing year for Kyle Ptts. And, the reasons for that disappointment, I've been a little bit more critical of Zach Robinson and seeming like he's an afterthought in the offense far too often. You've been much more critical of Kyle Ptts that needs to sort of take more ownership and responsibility. It's certainly been a mix of both. But last week, I think your side of the argument won out because we know that one pass from the nephew, as you refer, that was not catchable on that interception. But there were 3 other passes in that game that hit Kyle Ptts in the hands, and he did not catch the football. That's not on the quarterback. And so, since the bye week here on Locked On Falcons, the conversation about, the potential that Kyle Ptts is playing his last games in Atlanta. He might be someone that the Falcons are going to shop this offseason because they don't have a lot of draft picks. They don't necessarily have a ton of cap space, and trading Kyle Ptts would be one way to, help rectify that situation. Sure. And so basically I'm asking you, Jarvis, is this the game where Kyle Ptts can kind of rewrite the narrative and say, hey, guys, I know there's been a lot of criticism of me this season, and basically he's not going to get a better opportunity against his Raiders defense. It's going to be on the bright lights. We've seen him, have a big catch in that Chiefs game on Sunday Night Football, have a couple big catches in that Bucs game on Thursday Night Football. So to me, this is, I'm not going to say the last chance of Kyle Ptts, but kind of the last chance of Kyle Ptts. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm with you because here's the thing, man. Like you said, I've been more on the side of the man isn't consistent. And one thing about being a receiver or pass catcher in the NFL, you have to be consistent in order for you to get the rock, and I think that it's not like he can't win one-on-ones because there were times I saw on film, like matter of fact, on that 4th and 2, when nephew threw the ball to Ray McLeod, he beat his man clean. But you know what? Kirk didn't know that. Kirk didn't know what he was going to get. Was he going to run his route short again? Or was he going to have the right release in order to give me some room so I can throw the ball over the top so he can have room to catch it and take off running too? So I just say, man, like I always start with the player when it comes to, especially when it comes to whether or not you get the ball. Because coming into the season, I always go back to this. I know people might get tired of me saying it, but I have to say it because it's the truth. And Kirk talked about, hey, man, all you got to do is X, Y, Z, and you'll be a force. You hear Jesse Bates, Jordan, man, I'm telling you, man, he's got it. All you gotta do is just ... Like, man, I heard that movie before. I've seen it. I've seen that movie before. I listened to that podcast before. I know understand what that means. That means it's a good thing, sure, that everybody recognize that you have talent as your teammate. That's cool. But it's another thing to say all you got to do is do what you're supposed to do and you'll be great. Well, that means that you're not doing what you're supposed to do to be great, or you're not giving it your all, quote unquote, on every single route, whether if you're the first or second read or third read or the check down or whatever, wherever you are on that list, like they need to know that you're going to be doing what you're supposed to do. And for that reason, that's why I feel like nephew has kind of lost some confidence in him, and that's why he might not be getting it right. Because let's keep it funky, man. If nephew wanted to get him the ball, he get him the ball. That's it. He went 4 straight games with over 65 yards receiving. 4 straight. And then what happened after that?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. The proof is in the pudding. It's right there on the tape.
Yeah.
You watched it. For those who not really like football savvy, I'm telling you, like, nephew don't trust him. If you don't trust him, he ain't gonna get the ball. The GOAT, y'all know the GOAT was like that. Tom Brady was like that. Like, even when Chad Johnson came over there, he was like, man, you need to learn that he played, dog. Like, you need supposed to be in where I tell you to be, not where you want to be. He wasn't gonna get that ball. He wasn't gonna get you aren't gonna get the ball if you're not where that quarterback expects you to be. And I feel like that's the biggest disconnect between nephew and Pate.
Yes. So we'll see. I can't say it any better than that, Jarvis. I'm a fan of Kyle Ptts. I've been a defender of Kyle Ptts.
Sure.
But there's just too many of these games, like we saw because he was in the right spot last week. He just
Yeah.
couldn't hang on to the football.
Catch the ball. Touchdown.
Yeah. So
Yeah, man.
we'll see if he can be in the right spot and hang on to the football on Monday Night Football. We'll be back with more content here on Locked On Falcons on Sunday afternoon. We'll see what's going on with the rest of the league on Sunday afternoon as we await the incredible Monday night matchup between the Atlanta Falcons and the Las Vegas Raiders. 9-game losing streak for the Raiders, 4-game losing streak for the Falcons. Of course, there's no such thing as ties in football. One of these teams will snap their losing streak on Monday night because it's impossible. Impossible, Jarvis. I know you're familiar with that word. Impossible for this game to end any other way. So that is it, guys. Check out Locked On NFL as your second listen after you check out.
Hold on, before you do that.
Okay.
I mean to cut out your lovely outro. You know, Tampa Bay gonna win.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's how it goes. So
yeah,
this is the one game they're playing the Chargers, right? So this is the one game that if they're going to lose, they're going to lose this game.
Yeah,
but you know the other thing that's going to happen if the Bucks lose, you know,
the Falcons gonna lose too.
Yeah, so it's.
But that can't happen based off of what I said earlier on the Atlanta football party.
Yeah.
How about that for a tease?
Yeah, there you go. So go check that out, guys, please, and see how out of pocket Jarvis is, more so than he is right now. On Locked On Sports Atlanta, Locked On Falcons, continue to be your first listen. Second listen, check out Locked On NFL to get geared up for this weekend's action. Check out Locked On Bucks if you want to get James Yarko's thoughts on how they match up against this Chargers team, or check out Locked On Chargers for Daniel and David's reaction to that, because we'll all be glued to the TV to see if the Bucks, the mighty Tampa Bay Bucks, go down and just open that door for the Atlanta Falcons to ultimately disappoint, or, you know, we'll see on Monday Night Football. But guys, we'll be back. Appreciate it. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.